Welcome back to the Jayda InStitches show and our Victorian parlor. It's June already, which means we are halfway through 2018, and by the end of this episode, we'll be halfway through this year's calendar blanket, the Victorian Stitch Sampler. This month, we are going to learn the open shells and picot stitch. This is another really pretty, slightly lacy little stitch. It's a 2-row repeater, nice and simple. Both rows are very similar, and once they get into your head, you'll be zipping along in no time. As always, there will be a written copy of this stitch guide available for sale in our Etsy shop. Please visit our shop and purchase a pattern. It helps support our show, and we'll put a link to our shop in the description box down below. And one quick note before we get started. This past Monday, we hosted our first ever crochet party live. It was a lot of fun, and special thanks to everyone who has their notification bells turned on, got the notification, and popped over to see what we were up to. We're going to do it again this coming Monday night, June the 4th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's Ontario, Canada time. And we'll post a reminder on the community tab of our YouTube channel. So you can grab your current crochet project, your favorite beverage, sit down, put your feet up, and join us for a live stream. We're going to have ourselves a little crochet party. That said, let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up the open shells and picot stitch together. You're going to want about 100 grams of the same kind of yarn you've been using all along for your blanket for your next stitch installment, and a small amount of a different color for your divider row. I'm using cream for my divider rows throughout. You need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle. We're using a 5.5 millimeter hook, also known as an I9 in the US or a size 5 in the UK. And also you need your blanket. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. First, we're going to work our divider row. Every divider row should have 120 stitches in it, including the chain 3 at the beginning. For some reason, last month, I wound up with a couple short, even though I swear I counted multiple times, and I did not have 120, which is why I wound up with 29 chain 3 spaces across the top of my final stitch row, or in fact all of them. And some of you who did have 120 stitches had 30 chain 3 spaces. So it's no big deal. Obviously, this is just a stitch sampler, so I'm going to get us all back to 120 spaces, or 120 stitches, I should say, in our divider row. So very simply, we're going to begin with our divider color, make a slip knot, and all of us are going to join with a slip stitch in the top of that first stitch at the end of the last row. Chain 3, this chain 3 counts as a double crochet. If you have 30 chain 3 spaces, you are going to work 3 double crochet into this space. If you have 29 spaces, like me, you're going to work 4 double crochet into this space. So 3 double crochet into the first space if you have 30 chain 3 spaces, and 4 double crochet into the first space if you have 29 chain 3 spaces, like me. For everyone with 30 chain 3 spaces, you are going to work 4 double crochet into every single space all the way across until you get to the last space, which we'll deal with. And for those of us with 29, we're going to work 1 more space with actually not 4, but 5 double crochet in it. So we have to make up a couple of extra stitches here. This is Stitch Cheating 101. And now we can join the rest of the population working on this blanket and work only 4 double crochet into each space all the way across. When you get to the second last space, give a pause and I'll catch back up with you there. Alright, we're getting close to the end, and I'm back down to my last 2 chain 3 spaces. If you had 30 chain 3 spaces all the way across, your second last chain 3 space should have 4 double crochets into it. But if you're like me and you wound up with 29, then you want to work 5 double crochet into that last chain, or second last chain 3 space, I should say. And that leaves us with our final chain 3 space. So you either have 4 in your second last space if you had 30 across, and 5 in your second last space if you had 29 across like me. That leaves us with this last space, which is technically a chain 3. and like sort of our little corner thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually work the final double crochet into the top of that little chain 3. If you had 30 chain 3 spaces all the way across, you can work 3 double crochet into this last space and then your final double crochet into the top of that chain 3. But if you're like me and you had 29, you want to work 4 double crochet into this last space, and then your last double crochet will be in the top of that chain 3. So count up 1, 2, 3 and put a double crochet in the top of it. Very important, count up all your stitches. You should have 120. We should all have 120 double crochets, including that chain 3 at the very beginning in this divider row, and then we will be off to the races. Once you're sure you have 120 stitches, snip your yarn, fasten off, grab your yarn needle, and weave in any and all of your little tails. Alright, now we're on to our lovely little pattern stitch. This is the Open Shells and Picots stitch. We're going to start with our pattern stitch color, make a slip knot, and make sure that you've got your blanket now facing, so you finished your last stitch in your divider row and you flipped your whole blanket over, and now we're going to join our yarn with a slip stitch in the top of the last double crochet we made. Chain 1. We're going to single crochet into the same stitch that we just chained 1 out of. Chain 1 again. I'm going to weave in my tail afterwards. We're going to skip 3 stitches, find the next one, and work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 into it. So into that same stitch, double crochet, chain 1 3 times, and that should be 3 stitches away from the little single crochet we made. Skip 3 more stitches, find the next one, and work a single crochet, chain 3, single crochet into the same stitch, chain 1. So there's our little picot, and there's our little open shell. And now we're going to repeat. Skip 3 stitches, find the next one, and work an open shell, or double crochet, chain 1 3 times into the same stitch. Skip 3 stitches, find the next one, and we're going to work that little single crochet picot. So you single crochet into that stitch, chain 3, single crochet into the same stitch, and then chain 1. And that's the little single crochet based picot. So an open shell, single crochet picot. And repeat. Skip 3 stitches, find the next one, and work double crochet, chain 1 3 times into it. After you've worked double crochet, chain 1 3 times into the same stitch, skip 3 more stitches, find the 4th, and work that little single crochet based picot into it. So you single crochet, chain 3, the chain 3 is what makes that little picot, single crochet back into the same place, and chain 1 more just to get you out of it. And that is what it looks like. You're going to repeat this little open shell, single crochet based picot stitch all the way across. Make sure there's 3 stitches in between each little motif, and I'll catch up with you at the end. At the end of row 1, the last thing you should have completed was an open shell, so double crochet, chain 1 3 times into the same place, and that'll leave you with 2 stitches in the top of your your chain 3 that started the previous row. So 3 stitches in essence left. So we're going to skip 2 stitches, find the top of that chain 3, and single crochet into it. So we're, in a sense, we're sort of cheating in the last little bit to make it fit across that row. So that ends with a open shell, skip 2 stitches, single crochet in the top of the chain 3. If you count up just your open shells all the way across row 1, you should have 15 of them, but most importantly, this row should begin and end with a single crochet. Row 2, the even row, we are going to chain 4 to begin. That chain 4 counts as a double crochet, chain 1. I'm going to turn our work over, and this blanket is getting big, so that's becoming quite a thing to do. All right. We're going to begin every even row with a half open shell. So that chain 4 is a double crochet, chain 1. We're going to double crochet chain 1 into the same single crochet that we ended the previous row with, and that completes the half open shell. And super easy from here on out. We're going to alternate the same little pattern, motif pattern we were doing in row 1, but of course it's going to sit sort of opposite each other. So into the top middle stitch, so you find that open shell from the previous row, find the middle stitch, and into the top of that you're going to work a single crochet based picot. So you single crochet, chain 3 for the picot, single crochet back into the same stitch, and chain 1. Hop over to the next motif, which is that little single crochet based picot, find the picot, and work an open shell into it. Double crochet, chain 1, 3 times. And then we repeat. Find the middle stitch of the next open shell, work that single crochet based picot into it, chain 1 to get away, and then the next thing is the open picot. You're going to work the open shell into it, double crochet, chain 1 3 times into it, and so on. And that will take you right across row 2. At the end of row 2, or an even row, the last full motif you work is a single crochet based picot into the top of an open shell from the previous row. And that brings us to the single crochet that began the last row, and we're going to work a half open shell into it. So you work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. That's it. That's what begins and ends. So a half an open shell is what begins and ends every even row. We're going to chain 1 to turn. That takes us into an odd row. Turn our big blanket around now. Every odd row begins and ends with a single crochet. So into the top of that double crochet, you're going to single crochet once, chain 1, and here we go again. If the first thing you come to is a picot, you know you need to work an open shell into it. And that is double crochet, chain 1 3 times into that little picot. Next thing we come to is an open shell, so we know we have to find the middle stitch, and into the top of that we're going to work a single crochet based picot. And that is it. All you have to know for the rest of this stitch pattern. You're always going to work a picot into the top of an open shell and an open shell into the middle of a picot, and that's all you're going to do. The only differences between the even and odd rows are that the odd rows begin and end with a single crochet, and the even rows begin and end with a half a shell, which is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then chain 1 in between each of your little motifs. That's it. We're in the middle of row 3 here, so you're going to finish row 3 and then work another few rows up to row 9. So we want to work 9 rows in total of this little stitch pattern, and that will be it for the open shells and picot stitch. All right, I have worked 9 rows in total of the open shells and picot stitch. 9 rows equals about 4.5 inches from the top of, say, one of the little peaks down to the divider row, or that's about 11.5 centimeters. So 11.5 centimeters or 4.5 inches. And just like everything else, we're going to snip our yarn, fasten off, take a moment to grab your little yarn needle and weave in your tails, and that is the open shells and picot stitch. Ooh, that's pretty. And that is the open shells and picot stitch I hope you enjoyed working the June stitch along with me, and we'll see you soon on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody!